April 19th, 2023. Well, yesterday the lawsuit of Dominion against Fox was settled by an agreement for the trial of for the $787.5 million of Dominion, um, which I think is another, this completely outrageous development. But of course, we have to look at why did Fox make this settlement? Well, one of the main reasons was, of course, they were clearly in a biased court setting with a Democrat judge, a Democrat jury, and a Democrat state with a Democrat appeals courts, a Democrat Supreme Court, etc. You'd probably have to get all the way to maybe the U.S. Supreme Court before you would perhaps actually, have a fair hearing of the case. So, and even then, who knows what would occur from that? I mean, to some degree, I mean, some people on the Republican side were always pushing a little bit in the opposite direction here, in terms of, protecting media organizations, largely because most media organizations are run by liberals, as we all know. And so, but I guess as a practical matter, they did avoid the embarrassment of having all their people put on the stand and examined and cross-examined by hostile attorneys. This whole thing, I think, is part of an ongoing effort, of course, of the regime as a whole. I call this sort of fascist state we live in, which consists, the Democrat Party, a lot of rich corporate interests, and the mass media and academia, etc., to kind of rule the country in some kind of some quasi-authoritarian state. And of course, this is another example. If you can knock out the one remaining alternative news source that exists, you've kind of got them going back to the old monopoly they used to have. Now, of course, there are other things. There is, of course, Newsmax, and there's One America News, of course, both of which have been put off their. Their main cable distributors. I believe Newsmax might be on some cable company, but it's definitely off of the AT&T type services. And of course, they're both under lawsuit by Dominion as well, which probably doesn't help a whole lot from the point of view. Well, it's a question of, I always raise the issue, how much damage was really done to Dominion anyhow? I mean, I don't know exactly. I mean, have they lost a lot of business over these 2020 claims, which were, I mean, obviously there were claims that were wrong, but I mean, a lot of news organizations put out claims that are wrong. I mean, what about the whole Russia hoax thing that they put out on Trump for years on all these other networks? And it turned out to be completely bogus. I mean, so I don't know, maybe Trump should be suing them. I don't know. But apparently, I don't think he's going to get the same day in court that the Dominion was going to get. Of course, I don't know who these Dominion people are. I mean, I guess they're all a bunch of Democrats, I assume. But anyhow, so so that's kind of the situation. But if you like these videos, please give me a like. It should help with the algorithm. And of course, you can subscribe if you haven't already, if you see it, and get some links to other people. Let's see if we get the we'll eventually should be able to get to at least 100 subscribers. Come on. I mean, so anyway, but so basically that's kind of the situation. Now, on the other hand, I would have to say that some of the statements that high-level Fox people made in these depositions that I've heard about were really stupid. And also, I think that the biggest problem with people now is they don't seem to understand that things you put in text messages or things you put in emails are not the same thing as something you might say in a private conversation. These are recorded and they're subjected to subpoena, and they can be retrieved. So, you don't, if you want to say something like they were saying, you don't put it in a text. You send them a text, say, give me a call, or something like that, and talk about it in voice, or talk about it in person. You don't, if you do this stuff with anything that might be controversial that eventually could be used against you in a court of law, you don't put it in a text or an email. So that's simple. People should learn. This has been going on forever. I mean, from Ollie North's little snafu back in the 80s to people on Wall Street that were laughing about the junk stocks they were recommending people to buy and only to get sued. And I mean, you know, if you're doing something like that for, and in this case, it's quite a little different. I don't know. I mean, I think there were selected hosts on Fox that went over the top. I would say that Lou Dobbs was particularly a little bit there, and maybe Maria Bartiromo. I mean, if anything else, they should have at least questioned what was being said, and definitely invited Dominion and Smartmatic and so forth, on to give their rebuttal, and what do they think about it? I mean, obviously the claims themselves are being absurd, and of course, who we only have to blame for this debacle again is, of course, our hero Donald Trump, who again caused a lot of problem for a lot of his friends as he continues to wave a. I mean, the point is, I mean, now he's going to be facing a trial here, next week or so, about a defamation case where some woman claimed that he raped her years ago, and he said she was a liar, and now he's getting sued not for the actual assault, alleged assault, excuse me, but he's getting sued for what he said about it. And again, we're going to have another one of these fiascos, and of course, we have the ongoing New York case, which we've talked about, which I think will eventually be dismissed based on statute of limitations, I think. But maybe not. I don't know, depending on just how biased that system is. And then you have, of course, other cases that he's facing. The Georgia case, if it ever is filed. I mean, to me, that's nonsense. I mean, but but then he has something much more serious, is this Jack Smith stuff, because there you're dealing with actual, what appears to be outright open and shut violations of rules, unless he can really adequately defend his idea of mental declassification of documents. Yes, Biden did the same thing, but the system we have is not fair. It's a Democrat two-tiered bias system because almost all these courts are in Democrat jurisdictions. I mean, you even have, I always think that there's even the case, of many years ago of Tom DeLay, who was the House majority leader for the Republicans, and even in a state he comes from, like Texas, well, gee whiz, the trial had to be held in, oh my goodness, Travis County, a Democrat bastion within a predominantly Republican state. I mean, this just seems to be happening everywhere, So at any rate, that's a situation we're facing here, and I think it's kind of a sad situation. It's clearly an example of what they call lawfare, using the law as a weapon of war, basically. I mean, there's no way that settlement should have had to been made, but given the court they were facing, you can see the only hope would be that a Supreme Court would overturn the thing, and then they would be involved in years of litigation over it. Of course, what the fate of these other two lesser outfits is going to be is another case. Maybe they'll fight it to the end because they don't have enough money to really make a credible settlement. That's possible. So anyhow, that's about that. Now the other thing we need to also focus is this ongoing intensified attack on Justice Clarence Thomas. I mean, we've really got to. I don't know. This one is kind of. It looks to me like it's basically a case of somebody who probably just, not being in the aggressive environment that members of Congress and presidential candidates are in, simply didn't pay the adequate attention to what things were and wasn't sufficiently, let's say, concerned about what might be done. I don't know. It's kind of interesting that this has gone on this long, but of course it's another thing. We hope we can defend him. I tend to think he's not going to be really forced from office if he's gutsy enough to simply not resign and stand his ground. And I don't think the House is going to impeach him, because I don't think that, under Republican control, they will actually push forward with that motion. And I don't think they can even begin to hope to convict him in the Senate, unless the Republicans totally cave, because it takes a 2/3 majority. So even if you have a few rhinos, if you want to call them that, flipping, well, that's probably not enough to get the 67 votes. So anyhow, so that's kind of what I think about all that. I think that kind of the outrage of the week here. And so, at any rate, I'll kind of be wrapping this up now. I'll as always be posting this on Rumble and kind of my backup channel, and of course the links to my social media accounts are below. I guess we can forget about Parler now, because apparently it's been taken over by some liberal group, and I guess they're just going to trash the thing. So all I see is this message that they've taken it down. So that one won't be. I guess I'll make, well, I guess I can go ahead and take that off now. All right, and until next time.